Right, so today we're going to be implementing authentication with Next.js. We're going to be using JSON web token, and we're going to place that token inside of a cookie and send it to our browser. Now, we're going to do it the proper way without actually sending the token through the JSON response and then placing it inside the local storage. We're going to do it the actual proper way. Now, I've already made this video, and it was using Next.js 12 dot something. It used the pages directory. Now Next has updated and it uses the app directory, and this is an updated version of it. So let's get straight into it. I have this form here that has two inputs. Input 1 and 2, it's for the username and the password, and a button. And also the form, when I submit the form, it will take the username and the password, and we will continue from there. Now you can follow along. I just created an empty Next.js project and type this in. We will do this on the client side because, well, this entire authentication depends on it, because you cannot actually get the cookie if you're doing server side. The cookie is inside the browser, so this needs to be client side. You have to import the use client at the top, and that tells the browser, tells Next exactly as I explained right now, that this will be on the client side. Now, before we actually start, you also have to install some dependencies, and that's the cookie, Axios, and JSON web token. So you're going to close this. You're going to say npm install Axios, and you're going to wait for that to install. I'm just going to do it so you can follow along. Install cookie, and npm install JSON web token. Now I'm using TypeScript, so whoever is using TypeScript, you might need to install these dev dependencies here, the types for cookie and the JSON web token. And now we can run our server again, npm run dev. And now we can continue. Now, first off, we have to create an API on our server that will actually check if the user can log in, and if the user can, we have to create the token and create the cookie and then return it to our browser. So let's create the API part. So let's say API. Now I'm just going to create the API and explain it. So we're going to say API/auth/login, and we're going to say route.ts. Now this route.ts is a reserved name, which means you cannot name it, for example, user. It will not work. The API needs to be named route. And inside of this API, we also have to have a reserved name of get, post, delete, and so on. You can read the Next.js documentation. So the route names as the page here have to be reserved. The page is page.tsx, and that's it. And the route also, route.ts, and that's it. Now, for our API point here, we have to log the user in, and the path will be API/auth/login. We have to get the username and the password that are passed. So we're going to take the body from the request. So this is how you get the body. You await the request and you call the JSON function. And let's extract the username. So let's extract the username and the password from the body. And let's say that we want to authenticate our user, and only a user with the username admin and the password can log in. So let's say if the username is not admin, or the username is not admin, or the password is not admin, then let's just return a response that will say you're unauthorized, right? So we're going to say next response, and we're going to say, let's say message unauthorized. Did I spell this correctly? I think I did. Unauthorized, and let's give it a status of 401, and we have to say JSON here. Okay. Now next response.json, message is unauthorized, and the status is 401. Now this is if the user entered anything else other than admin, because we want to fake the database. You probably will have a database connection here, and you'll check if the user actually exists. Now, the next step is actually checking the environment variables. I have these two environment variables here, the JVT secret and the node environment, and I'll show you why. The second step we have to do is get the environment variables and take the JVT secret, and I'm gonna say or an empty string. Now you always have to check this. So always check this. You have to have a set environment variable and never use this for your JVT secret or anything else that's high security, right? Always use a strong password here. So you get the secret, and now we have to sign the token, right? So we're gonna say the token is equal to sign, and we're gonna import this from, not from crypto, but from JSON web token. And what we have to do here is pass the username, because I want the username to be saved. And the next thing that we have to do is pass the secret. And this is secret that we're gonna use. And the final thing is we have to pass the expiration. So I'm gonna say expires in, and let's give this a max age. So we're gonna say max age, and let's say 60 times 60 times 24 times 30. I think this is equal to 30 days, pretty sure. Now, we give the max age here, and this is how long the token will be valid. Now, once we have our token, we have to actually create the cookie and send this. So we're going to say serialize, and we have to call the serialize function from cookie. Okay, so we're going to import serialize from cookie, and I'm just going to paste this in. The cookie is going to be our site JVT. It's going to take this token that we just created, and these are some options that we have here. So I'm going to say max age is equal to max age from the top. Again, this is the same thing. The cookie's actual max age when it expires. And now since we have the token and we have the cookie, we can actually send a response here. So we're going to say response is equal to message. We're going to say authenticated. And let's return the response. We're going to say return new response. And let's stringify this object. We're going to say response here. And it should be a status of 200. And this is the part for the cookie. So we need to set the headers. So we're going to say set cookie. So this is, you need to spell it exactly like this. And we have to give it this serialized value here so that it actually sets it. Now, this is the entire route. We have to test this out now. So we have to call this route and see if it works. Now we can go back to our page.tsx, and let's just write a try catch here. And we have to write the request here, and we have to import Axios. I'm going to say Axios. You can also use fetch. Fetch is really good now, and Next is extending fetch. But I personally like to use Axios, and it's fine. For most use cases, it's very fine. So we're going to call this API route. So API auth login, the exact one that we made. We're going to pass the payload. We're going to pass the username, and we're going to pass the password. And if the request is good, let's just log this out. So I'm going to say data, and I'm going to say alert json.stringify data. And let's redirect the user to /dashboard, for example. But if it fails, let's take the error and say e.esaxios error. I think that this is, yeah, this needs to be imported. And let's just say error.message. Okay, so if something fails, we're just gonna show the error. Of course, you can set loading states, errors, and you can update whatever you want in your exact use case. Now, let's try this out. If we go to the network tab, let's type in admin here, and let's type 123 as the password. Of course, this will not work because we need to have admin and admin in both the username and the password fields. So if we submit this, it should say request failed with status code 401. That's good because it's not the correct username and the password. Now, when we type in admin, let's say submit, we get the authenticated, so it works. Nice. We're now authenticated. And now we can go to the application here, go to cookies, and we can go to localhost 3000, and we can see our cookie here. So Our cookie contains the token, so it's the name, it's the same name that we set here, our site JVT, and it has an expiration date and so on and so forth. Now, we have the cookie and we are authenticated. And now with each request, this will be sent in the request. And that's all we need to actually get authenticated. And let's go back to the network tab. And what we should do here is import router so that we can redirect the user when he is authenticated. So let's go back to our page, get the router. We have to import the router. We import it from Next navigation. We don't use router. Router is not, I think it can be used, but we're gonna stay away from deprecations. We're gonna import it from the navigation one. And let's just push the user, navigate him to, I think, let's say router.push, let's say /dashboard. And we can actually just destructure the push and take the push here. Okay. So this basically means that we don't have to type in router.something. We can just take the push function. Object destructuring. You should check this out if you don't know. Now, we're going to move the user to a separate page here. And of course, this page should show only if you are authenticated. Now, let's first make the page and then we can worry about those other problems. So let's go to our app directory. Let's say dashboard and let's say page.tsx. And in this page, we can just say export default function. Let's say dashboard page. And let's just return a div that says h1 super secret dashboard. And let's log in again. So we're going to say admin, submit, authenticated, nice. And there you go. We're at the dashboard page. Now, we have to make sure that we are at the dashboard page, right? Maybe we're not actually authenticated because I can go back to the login screen. I can go back to the dashboard and see everything is fine. Even if I have the cookie or if I remove the cookie and reload the page. So we have to make sure that everything is fine here. Now, we want to protect these routes. I suggest making a layout here. We're going to say layout.tsx. And this layout, it complains because we have to export and create the actual layout. Now, this layout should send the request and check if we are authenticated. If we are, then it's okay. But if we are not, then it's going to redirect us to the page, to the default one that we were on, just the regular home. Now, this layout should protect all of the pages under the dashboard because we have nested layouts now in Next.js. So let's just go ahead with implementing this and we can cover those other examples. So we're going to say export default function, let's say dashboard layout. It's going to take children and I'm going to say children.react node. So this just means that we can pass children to it. And let's say it like this. So we should return something. So we're going to say main and let's pass children here. Okay, so we have our layout now. So let's say we go back to dashboard and we can add anything we want here. So we can say header navigation. Okay, now we have the navigation here. Okay, so what we have to do is actually check if the user is authenticated. And let's make a separate route for it. And let's go for auth and let's call it me and call the route there. So we're going to say route.ts without this. Okay. Now in this route, it's fairly straightforward. It's a GET request and we just have to check if the user does actually contain that token inside the cookie. So what we're going to do here is use the cookie store. Now this is a very convenient way that Next.js provided us. So we can get the cookies. And let's just console log this. Let's say not token, but the cookie store. And we're going to go from there. Now, inside of this layout, we actually have to send the request. and see what's happening. So I'm gonna call a use effect here. And inside of this use effect, I'm gonna create an async function and call it. I like to call the function like this so I don't have to write a separate one. And let's just say that we can make a function here at the bottom that says async function get the user, okay? And let's create a try catch. So in here we will write the actual API request. So we're gonna say data, and we're gonna wait Axios get. Let's import Axios. Okay. And what's the API endpoint? It's /API/auth/me. Okay. And if everything is fine, we're just going to return the user as data and the error as null. I like to return data like this. So if everything passes, you have the user and the error. If error is null, everything is fine. Now I'm going to remove these errors, don't worry. We're going to type this out too. So let's say if an error happens, I'm going to cast this to an Axios error. And let's import this. And we're going to just return the user null and the error should be error. Okay. And we can remove this because it's redundant. And there you go. Now we can call this getUser function right here. So we're going to say const user and the error, and we're going to get the user. And let's check if an error happened. Well, obviously we're not authenticated, so we have to do something about it. So we can redirect our user, someone that wants to see the top secret dashboard that we have. We want to move him somewhere else. So we can check if an error happened. Let's just push it to the home page. And if the error did not happen, well, let's see what to do. So if the error did not happen, if everything is all right. Now, we have to add types here. So I'm going to add this interface here. This is for you TypeScript users. This basically means that we expect an object that's a string and an Axios error. So I'm going to say that this getUser here expects a promise and of the user response. I have to add a wait here because it's a promise. Okay. Now we'll do something with the user here, but first off, let's check where we are. Now, when we go to our dashboard and we don't have the cookie, as you can see here, we're getting redirected back. Now, if you can see that we can see the dashboard even though we're not authenticated. We can see it for a couple of seconds. That's why you can just do basic React stuff and you can create a state. So we can say use state. And inside of here we could say is success, for example, and set is success. We could say it's false at the beginning and it's a Boolean type. And of course, at the end, we can say set is success to true. And we can hide everything. So if is not is success, we can just say loading. I forgot the return statement. Okay, so we can go back to dashboard and it says loading and we're back. Okay, it says loading and we're back. So no one can see anything. Now, there is one thing here that we have to do, and well, that's actually implement this part. So we have to actually validate and verify that JVT, right? So we have to take the token, and I'm gonna open the console here, and we have to take the token out of the cookie store. We have to check if it exists, right? So I'm gonna say token is equal to cookie store dot get, let's say our site JVT. Now what I do recommend here is for both of these routes, we have the our site JVT string. Now this is hard coded and it's not really good to use. So I would suggest that we make a constants directory, and inside of it make it an index.ts file, and let's say const cookie name. Let's say our site JVT. And let's use this cookie name instead of cookie name. We have to export this constant. I keep forgetting these small things. And let's say cookie name. Okay. And now we can replace this our site JVT here too. So we can say cookie name. And now you don't have to worry about hard-coded strings because, you know, there can be typos and there can be big problems because of these typos. Now we can also move this max age here. So we can go to the constants and we can say export const, but I'm not going to bore you with that in this video. That's a whole separate video about how you should manage your variables and organizing your code. Now we have to take this token and let's log this token out. Okay, let's reload the page. Let's go back to dashboard. Okay, it sent the request and the token is undefined. It cannot see the header because, well, it's pretty obvious. We don't have it inside of our cookie. So we're going to say, we're going to log in, right? Say authenticated. And now we can see our site JVT, right? And we have to take the value from it. So we're going to say token.value, or you can just use object destructuring. So we're going to say value. Okay. And now we have to actually verify this. So I'm going to do this with the token. I'm going to say if token doesn't exist, well, we're not authenticated. So we can return some response. And I can say return new response. Actually, let's not write the code. There should be a response here, right? Yeah. We can copy this response and let's import this. And there you go. Now, that's if the token is missing. But if the token exists, we have to write a try and catch again. And let's just try to verify this. So I'm going to call verify JSON web token. I'm going to pass the token value. I'm going to say const value is equal to token. There was an extra curly bracket here, and we can get the value from the token. And now we have to verify this. So we're going to say the value of the token and let's get the secret. And again, we can get the secret from this here. Okay. And let's pass the secret. And if everything works out, you can get the username if you need, and you probably will need it because we placed the username when we signed the token in. But for this example right now, I don't need it, so I'm just going to return a response. So let's take, for example, this response, and let's say response, copy this code here, and let's say it's our user. Let's say it's user, and we can say super top secret user. Okay, we return the response, and if something fails, again, we're not sure, but it maybe the validation failed, the token expired, whatever can happen. Let's say something went wrong, and let's give it a 400 or whatever is convenient and appropriate for the catch here. And now let's check this. Now, if I go to the dashboard, I can see the dashboard. If I remove this token and I reload, I'm redirected back. If I get this token again and I'm authenticated, nice. And let's just break this token. So it's some gibberish. It's not even a legit token. If I reload, it's gonna redirect me back because this is not good. This is not okay. Someone messed with it. Now, if you want to remove these tokens, for example, if you want to log the user out, what you can do is you have to set the same thing, but with the max age at -1, which means it will expire instantly. So let me just show you. So if we set max age at -1 and I try to log in again, I'm going to say admin, and I submit, authenticated. You see, the cookie is instantly removed because the -1 is just expire instantly. It's in milliseconds or seconds, I think. So if you want to implement the logout route, and if you want to stop someone, you can just return the the response here. You can set the set cookies, create the cookie, and just set the max age to -1. That's how you handle logging out. And that should pretty much cover everything that's been in the last video that's now deprecated. And now you know how to implement your own authentication with Next.js.